The truth is, Ike Ibeabuchi had everything needed to become one of boxing's greatest heavyweights. In the golden era of 1990s heavyweight boxing, when legends like Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis, and Evander Holyfield ruled the division, Ibeabuchi stood out as a physical marvel. With his perfect 20-0 record, fearsome power, and relentless pressure, he possessed all the tools to join these titans. But his story isn't one of triumph. Instead, it became one of sport's most tragic tales. A violent collision between supreme athletic talent and catastrophic mental illness that consumed him from within. The very thing that made him great in the ring, his ability to endure punishment, was also what destroyed him. Ibeabuchi's boxing journey began with inspiration in 1990. He was a young man in Nigeria planning to join the military when he witnessed one of sport's greatest upsets. James "Buster" Douglas knocked out the seemingly invincible Mike Tyson. This moment changed everything. He turned his focus to boxing, driven by the classic story of an underdog defeating a champion. His natural talent was obvious from the start. In his brief amateur career, he twice defeated Duncan Dokawari, who would later win bronze at the 1996 Atlanta Olympics. In 1993, he moved to the United States with his mother, settling in Dallas, Texas. He quickly dominated the amateur scene, winning both the Dallas and Texas State Golden Gloves tournaments in 1994. Turning professional under trainer Curtis Cokes, Ibeabuchi made his debut on October 13, 1994, with a second-round knockout of Ismael Garcia. Over the next 2.5 years, he carved a path of destruction through the heavyweight division. He built a fearsome reputation for his powerful physique, devastating punching power, surprising speed, and non-stop pressure. By spring 1997, he had compiled a perfect 16-0 record with 12 knockouts. His rise was nothing short of spectacular, and if you're a fan of boxing's most compelling stories, make sure you subscribe, because this one gets darker. On June 7, 1997, at Sacramento's Arco Arena, Ibeabuchi faced his biggest test yet. His opponent was David the Terminator Tua, an undefeated 27-0 Samoan New Zealander with 23 knockouts. Tua was the betting favorite, widely considered the next Mike Tyson for his powerful build and devastating left hook. The fight was for the WBC International Heavyweight title and would launch the winner to the top of the division. What happened next was both spectacular and cursed. The two men planted their feet and refused to give ground. They traded vicious power punches for 12 brutal rounds in one of the most action-packed heavyweight wars in modern history. The fight shattered records for punch output. Together, they threw an amazing 1,730 punches, a new heavyweight record. Ibeabuchi himself set an individual record, throwing 975 punches, an average of 81 per round, far above the typical heavyweight average of 50. Despite the firefight, Ibeabuchi showed tactical intelligence. He used a stiff jab and clever inside work to outmaneuver Tua. Both men showed incredible chins, absorbing tremendous punishment without going down. After 12 grueling rounds, the judges gave Ibeabuchi a unanimous decision with scores of 117, 111, 116, 113, and 115, 114. In one night, he went from dangerous prospect to top heavyweight contender. But this victory came at a terrible cost. Immediately after the fight, Ibeabuchi complained of a terrible headache and was taken to a local hospital. An MRI showed no physical problems, but something inside him had broken. Upon his release, his behavior took a dark turn. He began speaking of being plagued by demons and evil spirits. This was the first documented sign of the severe mental illness that would define the rest of his life. The timing was no coincidence. The brutal physical trauma from absorbing 282 power punches from one of boxing's hardest hitters appeared to trigger his mental collapse. His greatest triumph became an act of self-destruction. He won the battle but lost the war for his own sanity. Just 2 months later, those demons manifested in horrific fashion. In August 1997 in Austin, Texas, Ibeabuchi abducted the 15-year-old son of his former girlfriend. In what courts later determined was a suicide attempt, he deliberately drove his car at high speed into a concrete pillar on Interstate 35. He survived, but the boy suffered devastating injuries. According to the criminal complaint, the teenager sustained numerous injuries and would never walk normally again. The legal system's response was a critical failure. For an act involving kidnapping, attempted suicide, and permanently disabling a child, Ibeabuchi received just 120 days in jail and was ordered to pay a $500,000 settlement. Instead of recognizing him as a dangerously ill man needing immediate psychiatric help, his case was treated as a minor criminal matter. This failure allowed a man with rapidly deteriorating mental health back into professional boxing. During his year-long layoff, Ibeabuchi's mental state continued fracturing. He developed a consuming delusion based on his ring nickname, the President. Boxing promoter Lou DiBella recalled the transformation. There were times when he thought he was really a president, not of the United States, but maybe president of the world. His handlers had to appeal to the president's regal nature just to get him to basic obligations like weigh-ins. The delusion could also turn terrifying. Promoter Cedric Kushner described a chilling dinner meeting in New York with HBO executives. Mid-meal, Ibeabuchi suddenly grabbed a large carving knife, slammed it into the table and screamed, "They knew it! They knew it! The belts belong to me! Why don't they just give them back?" Kushner called the experience peculiar and said Ibeabuchi was like a Viking, a man whose internal reality was becoming increasingly violent. After serving his 120-day sentence, Ibeabuchi returned to the ring in July 1998 with a first-round knockout, followed by a ninth-round stoppage 2 months later. These wins set up another high-stakes HBO fight on March 20th, 1999. His opponent was Chris Rapid-Fire Bird, an undefeated former Olympic silver medalist at 26-0. Bird was one of the most difficult and defensively slick heavyweights of the era, a master of elusiveness who would later become a two-time world champion. The lead-up revealed the extent of Ibeabuchi's mental deterioration. His behavior was so erratic that Kushner's assistant wagered $22,000 against his own fighter, convinced Ibeabuchi was on the verge of complete breakdown. Others described him as spooky, wearing sunglasses indoors and refusing to speak. On fight night, he reportedly wouldn't leave his dressing room until someone brought him a Snickers candy bar. Yet what happened next provided compelling evidence of his transcendent talent. His ability to execute a perfect game plan while his mind was in chaos suggested almost inhuman boxing ability. For the first few rounds, Bird's elusiveness worked. He controlled distance, made Ibeabuchi miss, and frustrated the bigger man. But Ibeabuchi remained patient, continued applying pressure, and began finding his range. In the third round, he trapped Bird against the ropes and opened a cut over his left eye. By the fourth, his heavy punches were landing regularly. He was methodically solving the puzzle in front of him. The dramatic finish came with seconds left in the fifth round. Ibeabuchi trapped Bird on the ropes and unleashed a vicious short-left uppercut that landed with sickening force. Bird collapsed, stunned and drooling. He beat the count but was badly hurt. Seconds later, he was down again, and referee Ron Rawl stopped the fight with 1 second left in the round. The victory was a statement. Ibeabuchi became the first man to defeat and stop the slick Chris Bird in brutal fashion. The win propelled him to number 4 in the Ring magazine's heavyweight rankings and placed him on the verge of a lucrative world title shot. It was his greatest performance. It would also be his last. Just 4 months after his spectacular victory over Bird, Ibeabuchi's fragile world shattered completely. On July 22, 1999, while staying at the Mirage Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, he contacted a local escort service and had a 21-year-old woman sent to his room. According to her testimony, she was there to perform a striptease. When she demanded payment up front, she claimed Ibeabuchi attacked her in a walk-in closet. When police arrived, he barricaded himself in the bathroom. The standoff ended only after officers discharged pepper spray under the door, forcing him to surrender. The arrest triggered a legal cascade that permanently buried his boxing career. The Clark County District Attorney immediately reopened a similar assault allegation from 8 months prior at Treasure Island Hotel. Soon after, 2 more similar allegations surfaced from Arizona. Ibeabuchi was held in custody without bail. The legal proceedings exposed the full depth of his mental illness. He was deemed incompetent to stand trial and sent to a state medical facility for evaluation. Medical experts officially diagnosed him with bipolar disorder, and a judge granted prosecutors permission to forcibly medicate him to restore competency. After 8 months of treatment and 2.5 years after his initial arrest, he was ruled mentally fit to face charges. To avoid trial where evidence against him was substantial, Ibeabuchi entered an offered plea, a legal maneuver allowing someone to plead guilty while maintaining innocence. He was sentenced to 2 to 10 years for battery with intent to commit a crime and a consecutive sentence of 3 to 20 years for attempted sexual assault. At age 26, with a perfect 20-0 record and a world title shot within reach, Ike Ibeabuchi's career was over. Today, Ibeabuchi's name is etched in boxing's pantheon of great what-ifs, often compared to athletes whose promising careers were cut short before their peak. The hypothetical matchups against era legends remain sources of fervent debate. Supporters argue his unique combination of granite chin, relentless work rate, and devastating power would have made him a nightmare for any heavyweight. Critics counter that his porous defense and reliance on absorbing punishment would have been systematically exploited by taller, technically superior boxers. Ultimately, his legacy transcends boxing hypotheticals. His story is a profound cautionary tale about the dangerous intersection of a brutal sport and severe untreated mental illness. It raises critical questions about the responsibilities of boxing's ecosystem to recognize and address athletes' mental health. These are individuals often drawn from vulnerable backgrounds whose profession involves repeated brain trauma, a known risk factor for psychiatric conditions. The final reflection is on the man lost to illness. While incarcerated, Ibeabuchi demonstrated sharp intelligence, earning 3 associate degrees and a paralegal certificate. This capacity for focused study stands in heartbreaking contrast to the chaos that governed his personal life. His story isn't just about a lost champion, but about a fractured human being who left behind a handful of brilliant, brutal fights and a lifetime of sorrowful questions about what could have been. Ike Ibeabuchi's story is one of boxing's most tragic. Let us know your thoughts on his unfulfilled potential in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.